G'day guys, just going to go through my settings for the Creality CR-10S. First off, I'll show you how to add the CR-10 to your Simplify 3D. It's done via this. You select the printer here and you'll see dozens and dozens, if not more, printers. Okay, I've already selected the Creality CR-10, which is there. Okay, so I won't do it again, but I'll just show you again where to find it. It's over in Help. Oh, I can't get in there. Just get out of this. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. There we go. And in here we select the printer and we go to Creality CR-10, and you would select, and then it's automatically dragged into your Simplify 3D. It has a lot of default settings. Now what I'm going to show you is the settings that I've changed to run my CR-10S. Now, as you may know, I run ABS a lot, so I will show you the ABS settings with some others thrown in. Okay, so first off, I'll just leave it on medium up here. First thing to look at is your infill percentage, which is the slider. Okay, we all know how that works. I usually run it down around 6 or 8, 10 maybe. If I want something really strong, I might even go to 20, but that's about it. Wouldn't go any further. Okay, down here you've got your nozzle diameter, which is all preset, 0.4. The multiplier I've got up a little bit because mine was under extruding a fraction. I'll get around to changing the E-steps, but I haven't yet, so I've just increased that for now. Extrusion width, there's a lot of people think that you should use manual and set it at 4, which is the same as the nozzle, 0.4 I mean. I find that it doesn't print nicely with that, so I go with auto, which you'll see brings up 0.48, and I figure Simplify no more than me, so I'll go with auto. Then you've got your retraction, which because it's Bowden is fairly high. Extra restart, I set that at 0.2. That helps with supports, gives you a nice solid support. You'll see I also use a vertical lift of 0.8. That helps the nozzle clear the model when you're doing movements, and you'll see I also use those there for your nozzle wipe, etc. Okay, we'll move along to layers. Okay, I print, these are all for a single extruder printer, of course. If it's a big model, I'll use 0.2. Sometimes I'll go down as far as 0.1. Just depends how fine the detail I need. Top layers, always up around 4, 5, sometimes even 6 or 7. And your lower layers and then your perimeters is totally up to you. I use 2 or 3 there. You will see down below is the vase and the inside out, which is all standard. That all comes up with the default. First layer, I drop that down to, I think that's 0.95. What this does is help mush the first layer into the bed a bit, flattens out that first layer so you get a bit better adhesion and widens it a fraction. This seems to work really well for me. And then your first layer speed, I do it nice and slow. Down here you've got where your layer starts are. You can choose if you want them all in a line on a particular part of a model, which is handy sometimes. Or you can just click that one, which gives you a faster print. Additions, I use a skirt or a brim, whichever you want to call it, For ABS, I have a 0 offset and about 15 to 20 cycles. This gives you nice bed adhesion, and it's actually attached to the model. If it was PLA, I would offset it because you don't need such a critical adhesion there, and drop it back to just 4 or 5 so that you can do your detailed bed leveling while it's actually doing those first few. But like I say, I leave mine on ABS, so we'll just change that back. If you like to use rafts, this is where you would mark it here. And the other two over the other side is if you were using dual extruders, you've got your prime pillars and whatnot, which we're not interested in. Infill, yep, I use just the rectilinear. There's lots of different shapes there that you can play around with. Same here, I just use the standard rectilinear. That all works fine. And moving right along, that figure there is related to the slider. You'll see, yeah, it goes up and down, yeah, then you've got your overlap and your infill extrusion widths. They're all standard. And all this stuff over here I leave as standard as well. Supports, okay. If you need supports, that's got to be ticked. And you will see that I run an infill percentage of around 15-18. That's just the gap between the supports. Then there's that one which I leave as is. And the next one down you will see is a support base layer. I use 2 here. That gives you a nice bed for the supports to sit on. I quite like that. And then this is the opposite. This gives you a bed for the model to sit on top of the supports. It just makes them easy to remove and a bit neater on the supports. And this stuff we'll fix up later when we're doing the actual supports using the tools option. Okay, and next one is temperature, which you probably know all of this stuff, but we'll just quickly run through it. ABS, again, I use, you'll see I print at 245. I just use the one set point there. The bed I use 110, which you'll say you can't get to 110 on a CR-10. Well, I can, because I've fitted a main supply silicon heated bed pad. So I run my bed at 110 for ABS, and that works a treat. You just got to watch that you don't heat it up too quick, because it will crack your glass, as I've already found out. Now you can add set points in here. That's this thing over here. So if you wanted to start off your first layer at, say, 250, you pop that in there, and then you'd add another set point and change the layer that you want that to start on. That would be 2 or 3 or whatever. And then your change of temperature over here, and change that to 245. Some people just use the one temperature all the way through. I do this, it's just a habit. Okay, everything else there is okay. Cooling, okay. ABS, again, no fans. I don't use fans at all for ABS, except in one spot, which we'll see in a second. But if I was printing in PLA, I would have no fan on the first layer, and then layer 3 I turn the fan on, which is what you need for a good print in PLA. And I also tick this one, which when the fan cuts in, it blips the fan up to full power for a second, just to get the fan spinning. which is handy when you do this, which is the bridging fan. So even for ABS, I use the fan for bridging, and that gives you a nice neat bridge. Okay, G codes are all standard. I didn't change anything in there. You can read what all that is. It's basically just defining the build volume, that sort of thing. So as I say, I'll leave all of that. We shall move on to scripts. Now script is important. You'll have a starting script, which is all of that stuff there. You'll have an ending script, which is all of that stuff. And the ones in between I don't bother with. Now most of these scripts were default on the CR-10 that we loaded, except for a couple of changes I've made. Now the first thing it does, of course, is it homes the axes. It's normal. But then you'll see I've added two lines, an M201 and an M205. What these do is I've lowered the acceleration and the jerk a little bit. It slows the print a fraction, but I think it gives you better corners, especially if you've got sharp corners. So I dropped those speeds down a fraction. You'll also see that in the avoid binder clips I've changed the Y to 10. That just moves it a little bit further away from that clip so that it doesn't hit the clip. And these I left as standard, didn't change anything there. Moving right along. Sorry if you're getting bored, but there's a lot of variables in the Simplify 3D. Speeds, okay, I print my ABS at around 50. If you were printing PLA, you could lift that up to 60, 70, 80 if you wanted to. If you were printing PETG, I would drop that down to about 30. That's just me. I think it prints better around those speeds. And then you've got your outline underspeeds, your support underspeeds. All of that was standard. I left that as it is. You could maybe lift up your XY movement speed, travel speeds a little if you wanted to. Can speed up your print time a bit. But that there is actually standard. I didn't change it there. And moving along, this one, there's nothing in here that I changed. That's all standard. No problem there. It's pretty simple stuff. And then we'll go into advanced. Now in here you can do your start and stop if you wanted to do different settings for different heights of your print. You would do it there. You also have your ooze control. All of this stuff here you leave as it is. I didn't change any of that. Then over here, I think I changed a couple of things here. I just can't remember, but these are the settings that I use. It just tends to give you a nice clean print. I don't have any problems with ooze with that setting. Seems to work very well. So that's about it for settings. So if you know how to use Simplify 3D, you can piss off now, because the rest of it is all stuff that you already know. For those that haven't used Simplify 3D, I'll just give you a quick overview of how to use parts of it. Up here I'm just saving the changes. You'll see that it now says that. Okay, so now we're going to move into importing a model. I just picked this one at random. There's that one there. And that will bring the model in. There it is. Now you can get all different views by using your left and right mouse buttons, and you can tilt it and zoom in, zoom out, move it up and down, so you get a nice clear view of what you're trying to print. Now of course this thing is never going to print in that orientation, so we're going to change that in a sec. But first off, we can change the size. You'll see there's uniform scaling is ticked, which means when you change it, it changes everything. But here's a thing that I like. It's under Edit, and it's called Place Surface on Bed, I think it's what it says. And it highlights the triangles, and you just click anywhere there, and boom, she's standing upright. So I use that quite a lot if I'm trying to orientate a model in a certain way. Then you just center and arrange, and there it is. Okay, double click on it again, and this is where you can change your scaling. We'll zip her up to about 500, and you'll see that suddenly they all change to 500, and boom, there she is. Now if you wanted to change just some of those, you'd uncheck uniform, and you could make it taller or shorter or fatter or thinner or whatever you want. You've got to be a bit careful doing that. Can alter the model dramatically. Now another neat trick is you can, models with a big base like that, you can actually drop them down into the bed. So you do that with the Z offset. Up here, just the down arrow there, and you'll see she's sinking down into the bed. This is handy if you need to restart a print at a certain level, if you've had a problem or whatever. Anything above the line prints, anything below the line doesn't. So that print would start at her ankles. So if you're a bit frugal, you can lift it up a little bit and just have a very thin platform to stand on. And all of this underneath doesn't print. So it saves you a lot of time and a lot of filament if you're that way inclined. And now we'll get on to supports, which is up here in Tools. As I said earlier, this is where your settings are. You can either have normal supports or just from the build platform. Because she's standing on a base, then we need normal. You can change the resolution here. You can have dirty great big supports like that, which are pretty much useless on this model. Or you can go down. I usually run at about 6 thereabouts, and there you'll see that there's still a lot of supports there. So I changed the overhang angle. Now if your printer's any good, which the CR-10 is, you can ramp that up to around 55 to 60 degrees and it will print that no problem. So it reduces the amount of supports that it puts in. And then you can fine tune even further by adding manual supports. And you'll notice that Simplify 3D sometimes misses things, and you'll see there's a piece of hair here that would start in mid-air if we didn't fix it. So we just pop a support under it and click, and bingo, she's now got a support under there, and that'll print nicely. So you go around your model and do that and just check that if there's anything else that needs supports. There's another one that needed one. And then you can do the same with removing supports. Sometimes there's supports that you think are a bit extraneous. Well, that was a good word. Now this poor deer has some things between her legs which we can get rid of. And there's another one in there which we can get rid of. And you again go around the model and just remove anything that you don't think you're going to need. And click Done. Okay, we can now go to Prepare to Print down here. And it goes rattle, rattle, bang, bang, thinking, thinking. And there she is with our supports in grey, as you'll see on the colour chart on the left there. And that's how it's going to print. Now I'll show you a few other things later, but up here gives you your build time and your how much filament it's going to use. Disregard the time completely, and then you just save it onto your SD card or print via USB, whichever is your preferred. I print from SD almost exclusively, and that's about it for that model. This is a little Christmas model. I've already done the supports. I actually added a couple after this was done around the bottom of his coat. It needed a couple of supports, but this again just shows you I'm going to print this at 0.1 layer height, so that's pretty fine. So okay, move along. Yes, and it's in ABS, and rattle, 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 and there he is. Okay, I'm just going to show you a couple of little things here. Don't worry about all this stuff I'm pointing out and moving around. That's, yeah, we can see him. Again, the time, depending on how much supports and whatnot you've got, that could be, it says 7, it could be 10, could be 12. It's never going to be less, believe me. So yeah, don't take any notice of that time. Now moving down to the bottom, moving down to the bottom, there we have the slider. Now this gives you a layer by layer view of what's going to happen when you print it. And this is handy for checking that you've got nothing printing in midair and your supports are all okay and the model looks sound. So you can run that through a couple of times just to see that everything looks good, and then you are ready to print. Now, just a reminder of the Hot End channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already, and hit the little bell. And this is my new channel, which I'm playing around with, called the Hot End Plus. And this is to do with anything else that we play with, like fishing, boating, drones, photography, all that sort of stuff. So if you want to have a look over there, there's a few videos up there already, and that'll be built up more in the future.